feel now I have the saints Surapapru and Dhruva Maharaj here. Okay. Yatha prayanti samyanti shraddha vegana baluka samyuchyante viyujyante tatha kalena dehina. Word for word. Yatha, just as. Prayanti, move apart. Samyanti, come together. Strota vegana, by the force of waves. Baluka, the small particles of sand. Samyujyante, they are united. Viyujyante, they are separated. Tata, similarly. Kalena, by time. Dehina, the living entities who have accepted material bodies. Translation. O king, as small particles of sand sometimes come together and are sometimes separated due to the force of the waves, the living entities who have accepted material bodies sometimes come together and are sometimes separated by the force of time. Purport. The misunderstanding of the conditioned soul is the bodily conception of life. The body is material, but within the body is the soul. This is spiritual understanding. Unfortunately, one who is in ignorance under the spell of material illusion accepts the body to be the self. He cannot understand that the body is matter. Like small particles of sand, bodies come together and are separated by the force of time. And people falsely lament for unification and separation. People falsely lament for unification and separation. Unless one knows this, there's no question of happiness. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita 2:13, this is the first instruction given by the Lord. Vihinosmin yatha dehe komaram yavanam chara yatha de antara praptir tirastatra namuyati. Quote, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. End quote. We are not the body. We are spiritual beings trapped in the body. Our real interest lies in understanding this simple fact. Then we can make further spiritual progress. Otherwise, if we remain in the bodily conception of life, our miserable and material existence will continue forever. Political adjustments, social welfare work, medical assistance, and other programs we've manufactured for peace and happiness will never endure. We shall have to undergo the suffering of material life one after another. Therefore, material life is said to be Dukalayam Asasvatam. It is a reservoir of miserable conditions. Papa ki jai. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakya Chakshun Milita Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatan Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakambitam Sha Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Uh, so sorry about that. I was in some other wrong Zoom chat apparently. Oh, interesting. Oh, and am I still there? Anyways. All right. So this is a famous verse in the Bhagavatam. Uh, I believe there's one also that talks about the sticks coming together and separated by the waves. But nonetheless, the same concept is there of the um, yeah, the something coming together and being separated uh, inevitably by time, by something. And so the comparison is being made that that's what our um, that's what our existence is like in relation to other jivas. Um, so yeah, the association, like what do they have this saying? Break the break the what is it? Break the bonds that bind us, break the chains that bind us, something like that. Um, yeah, association. Interestingly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that uh, um, yeah, it's very important for devotees to associate with each other and not with materialists. And we know that Sankirtan mission. So on one hand, this association in general is very powerful. It's in this age of Kali, that's what's actually going to get us out of the material world is coming together and hearing and chanting. Um, like I just heard this recent pastime that took place with His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He got the devotees together in a room and he said, "Okay, look around this room. Is there anyone in here that you have ill feelings towards?" And you know, he didn't. He just said, "Think about it in your mind." And then he said, "If you have that, if you have ill feelings towards anyone here, that's preventing you from going back to Godhead." Yeah. So um, it it's interesting that yeah, this is the um, this is association of devotees is most important in our for our devotional upliftment. But then on the other hand, we're seeing like you know contrary is the how uh, association to the wrong people or association um, yeah in an unhealthy way to our spiritual life can actually be the binding force. Um, so, so of course, in the West, it's not as much of a problem, um, especially in America. It's like practically when you when you reach the age of 18, parents are like, "All right, like they pretty much give you the letter like that your lease is up, uh, and they just they want to kind of they want to push you out." So um, somehow how that culture is set up, it's um, it's quite yeah, it would be much easier to be renounced from your family because of this. I remember when I was first joining, and still everyone's like, "Oh, what about your parents? How do your parents feel?" Like, um, you know, and it's kind of like, okay, well, they're as Gurudev, my spiritual master, told me, he said, you have California parents, don't you? Like just like chill, laid back, kind of like detached, and yeah, so that was very much the case. And so when people ask me that, it's like, oh, well, they're okay with it, yeah. So it's not like, yeah, even if they weren't okay with it, it wouldn't be like uh, such a strong force to prevent me from practicing bhakti. Whereas other countries, yeah, it's much harder. Like in India, uh, the parents will think that they have a fear if their son goes to the Hare Krishna temple and chants the Hare Krishna mantra one time, then the next day they'll be in the brahmachari ashram and completely forget them. So um, so that fear is more there, and I've heard it's like, yeah, what's like sometimes even devotee parents will think, okay, what's in the Bhagavatam, that's in the Bhagavatam, but um, you know we want you to still work on your economic prosperity and all that. And yeah, the Bhagavatam's talking about all this renunciation and stuff like that, but you know, that's for Bhagavatam class. Now there's reality. Reality is we don't want you to become like Sukadeva Goswami. We want you to become like Bill Gates. So, anyways, this attachment, wrongly placed attachment, we can see can actually we're hearing here about how dangerous that can actually be. Um, um, and like I remember this one brahmachari. Oh, he was very powerful. Actually, a few different occasions of this. Very these devotees. Everyone thought, oh, these guys are going to take sannyas. They were just uh, very strict, empowered book distributors, great, knew so many slokas, and and then their path kind of took a bit of a detour in this lifetime. And from my perspective, it seemed like what was the yeah, big influence of that unfortunate detour was that they changed ashrams and then they went to live with their parents because yeah, I got to save money. I got to get myself, get my feet off the ground. So it makes sense, right? I'll go live with my parents, and in that way, I'll be able to get my grihasta life going. Well, I mean, it sounds good from a material point of view, but uh, if day after day you're associating with non-devotees, it actually has a very powerful effect on the mind. Um, like I know myself, visiting family and was with my mom one day, and I just mentioned something, because I knew like, okay, my mom's she's pretty she's likes doing service, likes supporting, likes that I'm, happy and all that. Uh, but, is like whatever, for lack of a better term, has like this envy towards Krishna. So anytime something is brought up about, yeah, anytime something's brought about the philosophy or Krishna himself, it's like I can just like this mood just comes off you really think that's real? Like or uh, or just yeah, some how sometimes you're in a challenging state and no matter what someone says, because you're already in a challenging mood. Even the most rational things would be like, no, that's not right. So she's like that. And so one time I just said something slight, and then she just made some comment that was like, that's like ridiculous. And I could see it actually affected me. Like I started thinking like, wait a minute, yeah, maybe that is actually ridiculous what I'm saying. Like maybe these stuff. So it's amazing that just the powerful effect that this that type of association can actually have. Um, and that's why uh, that's why when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked what's the quality of a Vaishnava, first thing he said was a Vaishnava avoids the association of materialistic people. So uh, yeah, so actually I wanted to talk about uh, and yeah, this topic is coming up about um, one cannot be happy without realizing that one is not this body. And what does it say? Uh, yeah. Anyways, this point it comes up throughout the purport that we can't be happy unless we realize this fact that we're not this body. And um, the misunderstanding of the conditioned soul is the bodily conception of life. So this happiness thing, I want to talk about this happiness thing. Because we see, so Prahlad Maharaj, uh, okay. So Prahlad Maharaj, yeah, talks about this in his talks with his classmates. Um, sorry, I'll get to that eventually. I wanted to say, uh, Vidura, yeah, Vidura is asking Maitreya um, about happiness, and he's saying, so yeah, Vidura, we know, comes across, straight sage Maitreya, and then he poses the question before him. He says, I'm seeing that everyone is searching for this happiness, but uh, actually when they're doing it in the wrong way, and even though they're wanting happiness, they're actually getting distress by those endeavors. So yeah, so Maitreya Vidura is saying, on the contrary, one is aggravated by such activities, material pursuits. Therefore, please give us directions on how one should live for real happiness. So yeah, so Vidura he asks a series of questions here. One of them is this, like about this happiness. Uh, and now if we go to Prahlad Maharaj, he and his instructions to his classmates, he's saying this: endeavors merely for sense gratification or material happiness through economic development are not to be performed, for they result in loss of time and energy with no actual profit. There's no benefit from engaging oneself in economic development. Yeah. My dear friends, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life, according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. Um, So, so little, yeah, little about the science of happiness is being told here by Prahlad Maharaj. And he's saying that yeah, it's these happiness and distress automatically comes by your past activities. So I remember first reading about this whole concept and how amazing it was that um, yeah, your happiness and distress, it's kind of already predetermined. And we can see that your happiness, no one endeavors for distress, but still it comes, right? And uh, and happiness also. Yeah. Your happiness, sometimes when you're not endeavoring for it, it comes, and sometimes when you are endeavoring it for it, it still doesn't come. So we actually, according to Prahlad Maharaj here, we're actually not in control of our own happiness. How about that one, huh? Uh, like imagine all these, whatever, all these articles and news feeds and all that, and what you could, and then uh, our response to all this is that actually your happiness and distress is gonna come as it comes. No need to endeavor for it. Um, and yeah, it's uh, happiness. It comes according. Um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, that one shouldn't endeavor for it because in this human form of life, one has the rare opportunity to for actually something greater. So like Lord Rishabhdev is telling his sons that, my dear boys, of all those who accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form of life should not work hard in day, uh, not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for cats and dogs who eat stool. One should simply engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. So, yeah, so this is the quest for happiness in this material world is a fruitless endeavor. Like yeah, this wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita is so powerful. Like there's a famous verse that says that, you know, just like summer and uh, winter seasons come, so similarly, that's also how distress and happiness come. Um, so, like, how powerful is this? That we can know, okay, so we're feeling a little distressed now, and generally, a materialist would start freaking out, like, maybe I have to get intoxicated, maybe I have to change this, maybe I have to change that, maybe I have to, get a different spouse, all this. But for the devotee knows that, okay, I'm feeling a little distressed right now, but just tolerate. I just have to tolerate it. Um, and by tolerating it, then the ultimate, then happiness will just come around in due course of time, like that. So, yeah, for a devotee though, he isn't so, he shouldn't pay so much attention to this. Like, this famous verse in the 10th canto, Lord Brahma is saying that, one who tolerates the miseries of the material world and just offers continuously offers prayers to the Lord, to that person, liberation comes as his rightful claim. So many instructions are there telling us that, okay, if you're distressed, like in other words, like who cares? Like if you're not feeling happiness, if you're feeling distress, like whatever, these things aren't so important. The important thing is continue offering prayers to the Lord. Um, I remember hearing that when I first joined, close to when I first joined, I heard this devotee say this statement, and it was so helpful. He said, "You may, you know, you may in your Krishna consciousness even feel sadness for like months on end," he said. But still, you shouldn't give up the process. And he was giving like an example of himself, how yeah he felt even after first joining. He would feel like he felt this sadness for like duration of time. Um, but even if that his point was, even if that comes, like still just keep practicing. Like we have like millions of lives worth of bad karma, and yeah, sometimes that's going to come to the surface. But for a wise person, they're not disturbed by these things. They just continue with their process, the process of bhakti. Um, so back to this conversation with Maitreya and Vidura. Um, so after, so yeah, Vidura is saying this, like, please tell me how the living entity can be happy. And he asks some other questions also, and then when it's Maitreya's chance to respond, um, these are some of the things he says. Uh, I shall therefore describe to you the pastimes by which the personality of Godhead extends his transcendental potency for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic world as they occur one after another. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all living entities, existed prior to the creation as one without a second. It is by his will only that the creation is made possible, and again everything merges in him. This Supreme Self is symptomized by different names. So it's amazing that, yeah, in response to this question, like Maitreya just starts glorifying the Lord. Uh, Showing that this is actually our occupation in all circumstances, happiness, distress, uh, like glorify the Lord. This is yeah, as Lord Brahma is saying, this is how one will achieve this rightful claim of liberation. Um, so it's amazing. It's an amazing uh, telling of how, yeah, what how the devotees should like what we should value in this life. Um, and ultimately, it is this glorification of the Lord. Um, and then happiness just comes as a byproduct. Like Nectar Devotion talks about uh, these different byproducts of devotional service, and like create Rupa Goswami explains, creates all auspiciousness. Um, so like when people come here, they're just yeah, they just can feel like there's something special here. Or when someone meets the devotees, they might not be able to put their finger on it, but it's like something is special about you guys, you know? Like there's something different about you guys. And so it's they're sensing that auspiciousness that comes as a byproduct of devotional service. And another one is that Rupa Goswami explains that, yeah, you become happy. I remember one time we were coming back from a program and it was quite late. And yeah, I think when it's late and driving, I don't know, I just, I'm like, when I'm just, if I'm ready for bed, it's kind of, I just like, whatever. For whatever reason, I was feeling grumpy. I was feeling grumpy that night. And then Madhupan Lila was like, let's recite some, let's recite some verses. She kind of like challenged me. She's like, okay, um, she's like, I bet, whatever. I bet you can't recite like three verses in a row or something. I was like, what? I don't think I can recite three verses in a row. So I started chanting these slokas, and then it just like it went on for like half of the ride. And by the end of the ride, I was so ecstatic, you know? Like I went from just being like completely grumpy, irritable, uh, just yeah, like not very pleasing to be around, I'm sure. And then just we started just chanting these verses, and I just started feeling so happy, you know? So it was amazing. Yeah, that the power of this the power of this glorification of the Lord. Um, or I have to say my favorite times at Gita Nagari have been when we used to do these reading groups. Um, so I was always telling Abe, I was like, we had this devotee Bhakta Abe here, and he was like, uh, what would make Gita Nagari nicer? And I was like, oh, well, it'd be nice if we got together and like read more. And I wasn't being so proactive about it. But then he just gets out a piece of paper and he goes, okay, what are we gonna read? And I'm like, what? I'm like, oh man, this guy's real serious, you know? He gets up and he's like, okay. So he's like, okay, we're gonna do 3 days a week. What books are we gonna read? And I was like, all right, I guess like Bhagavad Gita one day. He's like, okay, next day, right? I guess Chaitanya Charitamrita. He's like, okay. He's like, all right, I guess we can do some Prabhupada Lilamrita. Anyway, and he's like, all right, we're doing this. Like, I'm making this commitment. You got to make this commitment. Let's do it 3 days a week. We're gonna get together and we're gonna read these books, you know. Um, and so we started doing it, and wow, then I really felt this is definitely the spiritual world. I just felt, like when you go to India and it's like, this Maharaj is doing this kata, and then Vaisheshika Prabhu is doing this reading at this time, and then uh, you go then there's kirtan every night happening at this place, and you're just like swimming in an ocean of yeah, different opportunities for hearing and chanting. And yeah, I felt like that. Wow, yeah, I could totally save my plane ticket to India. Like I'm definitely here in the spiritual world, and that was really the difference. Was this coming together and glorifying the Lord? Um, so yeah, that's the true. So as we're hearing in this verse that true happiness comes from realizing we're not this body. Uh, you know, the happiness and distress of this material body. Okay, whatever, they come and go. uh, uh, we should be like the observer. But if we're not this body, then and if we're a spirit soul, that means okay, we should cater to that spirit soul, like the analogy or the sometimes they do a play of the bird within the cage. So the bird's in the cage, and then the owners are just like taking care of the cage. The cage looks so beautiful. They're polishing the cage, dusting it off every day, making the cage like seem so nice. But then the bird's inside like, yo, chirp chirp, what about me? Like you're taking care of this cage, but that's not gonna feed me. That's not gonna make me happy. Um, so yeah, it's an excellent analogy of what we're like. We're that soul inside the body, and so much time and effort is given to the body. But meanwhile, the bird of our soul is like just screaming, like, please, please give me these nourishing topics of Krishna. Like that's what I actually want. That's what will actually make me happy. Uh, so yeah, okay. So I'll stop there. If anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to do so now. Anyone online? Yeah, so that's
Hare
the point.
Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for a nice class talking about happiness. Um, I'm just remembering this verse that I think Gimri Swami talked about this once when he was in the loft here. How a man may carry a burden on his head, and when he feels it to be too heavy, he sometimes gives relief to his head by putting the burden on his shoulder. In this way, he tries to relieve himself of the burden. However, whatever process he devises to counteract the burden does nothing more than put the same burden from one place to another. This is Bhagavatam 4:29-33. It's just this idea of trying to adjust things to get happiness. But just these adjustments were just shifting from the burden from one from the head to the shoulder. Just reflecting on this and how you said how you were talking about how the scripture talks about how our distress and happiness are already kind of fixed, and how Prahlad Maharaj was talking about this with his his friends and fellow students. And also his verse 7:42 of Prahlad Maharaj saying that Sukhaya dukkha mokshaya sankalpa iha karminaha sadapnoti haya dukhamani haya sukhavrataha. And every materialist desires to achieve happiness and to diminish his distress, and therefore he acts accordingly. Actually, however, one is happy as long as one does not endeavor for happiness. As soon as one begins activities for happiness, his conditions of distress begin. So you're just helping me reflect on this information about happiness and that real self-realization is realizing our relationship with Krishna beyond the bodily concept.
Wow, that verse is like so powerful. As soon as one endeavors for material happiness, that's when their material distress begins. Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you. It's the Zoom is saying that your bandwidth, Janavat, your bandwidth is low, but your spiritual knowledge is not low. Okay, sorry. Okay. Yeah, and that's a that's the point. This verse, Rishabdev is saying that, engage in divine austerity. So it's an interesting point that austerity will be there, like one has to endeavor in this world, um, and one also has to, it's the nature of one to want to hear about things, hear about stories, all this. Uh, so no, just spiritualize it. Do divine austerities, do divine activities, hear about divine stories, and um, and in this way, Rishabdev is saying one's heart is purified and one attains eternal blissful life. So that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. You're just doing in a sense doing the same activities, but because they're now connected to Krishna, you actually get uh, not only do you actually become happier, but you ultimately attain the ultimate goal. Okay, anyone else have something? Like this devotee tells a story that there was one just on this topic of like real happiness. There was a Janmashtami feast, and so some devotees were serving out, and then after serving out, one devotee turned to the senior devotee and said, you know, all I could think about all day was how happy I would be when I would get to eat the feast. But now, by serving, I feel by like, serving the Vaishnavas, I feel so happy, and I don't even want to eat the feast. I'm just like feeling so happy now that I could like even go without eating the feast. And then the senior devotee said, "Yes, see, you have understood the power of service." So the yeah, this it, we get so much more happiness from giving rather than accepting. Like sometimes I'll see that, you see like Prasadam time, and look at the devotees on either side of the table. There's a devotee serving, and then there's devotees, you know, being served the prasad. And if you look at who looks happier, most likely what I've seen is that it's the people serving. Um, so yeah, kind of goes contrary to what might be thought of in the material bodily conception of life. But because that service, that act of giving is actually the nature of the soul, you can see it actually makes one happier. Okay, so
Haribol,
we'll stop. Okay, yep.
Jana. So if we are not endeavoring to be happy, at least some stability in our life, then what are we trying to do?
Yeah, that
Yeah, just reading and chanting the whole day and hearing, classes the whole day. I don't know how many of us have the stamina to do that. Just read, chant, hear. So what should we be doing? What's going to help us in our journey? Because now, endeavoring
Yeah, I'm glad you brought.
distress, right? So we don't want distress.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It was also in the back of my mind, like uh, just balance things out a bit. Um, so I have heard this statement that uh, when someone hears this statement that you shouldn't endeavor for happiness or distress because they're going to come anyways. Um, like what does what what does that mean? Does that mean that we don't do anything? Um, um, yeah, because generally, like most people, what their day is filled with is this, like fighting off distress and trying to get happiness. So what does what should one do then if this isn't like taking up your time? If you're yeah. And the response what I've heard in that connection is that yeah, well that's kind of the point is that uh, you my thoughts are getting a little jumbled up now. Um, you engage in you engage for that ultimate goal. Uh, yeah, like okay, you're not spending all your time planning to go to Disneyland. So then what do you do with your time? It's like, okay, you engage in devotional service, engage in, planning activities for engaging in devotional service. Um, and of course, there are basic, yeah, you do have basic necessities that do have to be met. Um, like, yeah, we have this body, so we have basic necessities we have to meet to you know, like Prabhupada says, you have to keep the body and soul together, um, because the body is referred to as the vehicle for obtaining self-realization. So there is some maintenance of the body is required, because it's ultimately our vehicle of service and our vehicle for engaging in sadhana and obtaining realization. Um, so those are some thoughts. I don't know if that answered saved by the conch shell. But yeah, it's a good question, a good topic. Uh, okay, thank you all very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Papa ki jai, Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. Govinda Adipurusham Ambajami Adipurusham Ambajami Govinda Adipurusham. Jaya Lali Lali Shaka Lali Lali Shaka Shri Lali Jaya Lali Lali Shaka Lali Lali Shaka Shri Lali Jaya Lali Shaka Lali Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Sadma
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Janakana. Yasmate Nandana. Gopikara. Madhana. Madhana.
I don't know whales retain pure emotional service. Dada is to be great on reverence. But your prayer can be passed quickly to the devil. Maintain the mercy of rich. My only way to have my conscience, your enemy flows now. A child with Lord's feet in my life, through all dark. He opened my dark eyes, filled my heart with prayers and knowledge. Here's my little heart. For many times, and I door. Many frequently see this there. Our surf mountain ocean was friend on nice building. Oh, my give you big the thing prevents that all of the remarks keep it shut. My wish is up around the same yeah. What did you try? Oh, save your car. So you said, what were you asking about? What were you asking? Guessing. It's so happy to be here. You show me something like that. That's simple, right? Not right. But you're gonna slip on it. I think I might have been sense.
So that I can follow.
I would just sit up.
Yeah, can you just make a thing on I can follow it, and you have to be like launches. This cat following. Boom, 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 boom. Yep. Pick something up. You do. And it's like doing the next.
And for Prabhupada speed,
That's the enough. Right. So that's simple.
sorry, you did something, that's good. I was.
It's in the round, so.
What's the motion for it?
Primary nature. Non That's what we have kind of okay.
Right? Flavor the me.
Okay.
That's right, I'm very launching. That's it.
It's like techniques. That would be like just see what I do. You do this.
Okay, she chant mantra will have like.
Okay.
What did Naga?
The general just everything.
It seemed like it was working. But sometimes you were playing, right? How would you, how, it's like, this is part of the word. This is part of the word. Okay, this place me. Close. Put everything close and burn.